Hi everyone, thanks for joining our webinar today. This is a follow-up to some of the Qlik conference activity that's been happening recently with connections. So we're going to go over an overview of Metric Insights and how we work with that platform. So I'm Mike Smitherman. I've got with me Louis Bedard, who runs our technical sales team over here. Morning, Louis.
Hi, Mike.
So the lines are muted, but we'll take Q&A through the chat and question windows in the Zoom meeting. So if you have questions as we go through this, feel free to type them in. If it's appropriate, we'll answer them as we go along, or we'll leave a few minutes at the end to address those. We are recording this, so we'll send out a link afterwards, but you can always find these recordings on our website, on our blog, metricinsights.com. So the agenda this morning, so we're going to sort of tee up again what Metric Insights is and how we solve certain problems in the market. But we're going to spend the bulk of the time really taking you through a demo of the platform and specifically how we work with the Qlik products, but also in general how we work with data and BI within organizations. So we'll spend the bulk of the time on that demo. So what is Metric Insights up to, and what's the problem that we're solving out there? We all come from a data background and a BI background, and what we found out in the market is that companies these days are not lacking for data. They've gone through the process of collecting a lot of information within the organization, and what that's resulted in is often a lot of siloed tools out there, siloed systems, everything from multiple databases, data warehouses, through operational systems, but also a lot of different BI tools as well. And even within the Qlik platform, a lot of customers have Qlik View and Qlik Sense. And for users who are looking at data for a couple of minutes every day, it can become challenging to figure out, okay, what's important today? What should I be looking at? If there's 100 reports that might be interesting to me, which are the ones that I should go and focus on today? And so with those siloed systems, it becomes a bit of a game of hide and seek for users and a bit of luck to make sure that they're looking at the right thing at the right time. So that's the problem that we're in the market to solve, and we do it with a platform that essentially connects into all the different sources of data within your organization, everything from underlying databases or big data stores through operational systems to business intelligence platforms like Qlik View and Qlik Sense. So we integrate with all those platforms, and we basically go through sort of 3 phases, if you like, with customers to help them solve this data problem. The first is giving them the ability to organize all the data and content coming from those systems into one place. The second is to help users really figure out what's important in that data by enriching it to uncover different anomalies and exceptions that might be happening so that we can focus the users onto the right data at the right time. And then the third thing we do is ensure that we're actually pushing that information to users, not relying on them to manually track these reports and dashboards every day or these metrics every day. If something unusual happens, we want to push it to them and let them know about it. So this morning, we're going to run through a demo of those 3 areas, and Louis is going to take us through sort of the details of what that actually means in the product. And the first part we're going to look at is the organization part. And we address this through the concept of what we call a consolidated portal, which again allows customers to essentially organize all that content that they have within the organization. You'll see they're able to categorize it and catalog it, do things like tag that content and certify it to provide users with one place to go to search and find information that is relevant to them. So Lou, let's jump across to the demo.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. This is the homepage of Metric Insight. This is where we do this organization of all this content in one single location. So as you can see here, Metric Insight, it's a tile-based system where each and every tile is an independent element. It could be a link to your favorite dashboards, no matter what they are. So here on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm showcasing the fact that Metric Insights can provide a quick link to your QlikView dashboard, QlikSense, and other legacy or other BI tools that your organization may have. As Mike mentioned, sometimes we see a lot of customers being in transition between QlikView to QlikSense. So the ability to have, different types of dashboard from different platforms in one single place is highly useful. We talked about the organization of the content that we have within the platform. So on the left-hand side here, you see that we have several different categories that helps us organize the content in, in a logistic, in an easy manner to find it and so on. For further organization, we can even put the content into folders and into favorite folders as well, which is what we're looking at right now. For each and every tab that we have, may that be a link to your dashboard like we have here, or it could be taking a look at KPIs as well. So those KPIs, we call them metrics or KPIs, are made out of data extracted from the Qlik platform or any other platforms that you have in order to profile this data and take a look at this data from a KPI perspective. We also have the mean to create a report. We'll talk about in a few seconds about exception report, change report, and so on. That allows the users to really have a report that are nicely defined and really focused onto the point that you should be paying attention to. And being a portal, Metric Insights, connecting to RSS feed, connecting to other applications you have on the web and so on, it's very easy to put this all together into one single place. Talking about the organization of content as well, on top of the screen, if you want to regroup your different types of content, right now we're looking at our favorite folders, but we could have regrouped it many different ways, such as by different types and types of frequency update and content types that we have and so on. Content can be found with different types of search as well. Elements can be tagged, so you can find your element based on different tags that you have set up in the system. Should I look at my customer service KPIs and dashboards, it's very easy to find them this way. And finally, doing the keyword search. So again, the platform is meant to be easy to consume and easy to find the information that you're looking for. One last thing that Mike mentioned during his segment here was talking about the fact that TALs also can be certified. So we have the ability to certify content that you're looking at, so to make sure that when your users are coming to the platform, take a look at a KPI or a dashboard, that they can, that the data is accurate and has been certified and looked at. So that's it, Mike, for the first part of the organization of the content.
So again, the idea here is that we connect to all sources of data, we bring it all together into a single searchable portal for users, and that's really the first step in trying to get a single point of access, if you like, to content for users in your organization. However, that's really just the first step in solving this problem. But now that we have all the data in one place, rather than relying on users to come into that portal every day and monitor everything that they might be interested in, we can start to automatically track the data that exists within that portal to try and uncover significant events that might be happening. And so we talk about enriching the data, and what that means is that we can connect to those Qlik dashboards or BI dashboards, and we can start to do things like track time series data within those dashboards. So looking at different metrics that might exist and saying, okay, are there any outliers in the data that might warrant that we go and look at it? Snapshotting the data behind those dashboards to look for exceptions in the data, so that we can say, okay, there may be a lot of different combinations of filter values for these different metrics. We might be selling products in different countries and different channels, but which ones have had exceptional values today that we might want to focus on? The ability to understand how content is changing. So oftentimes I'm kind of looking at a point in time in dashboards, but what changed from yesterday to today, and did anything significant happen that again I might want to focus on? And going as far as running sort of statistical analysis against this data to again highlight unusual events that might be occurring. So again, the idea here is that I may have access to 100 different reports or dashboards within the organization, but by enriching the data and enriching that and uncovering unusual events, I can focus my efforts on the ones that are critical right now. Pass back to Louis, and we'll run through some examples of that.
Thank you, Mike. I think it's a great segue to take a look actually as a Qlik Sense dashboard that we have here. Started the conversation with this. Those dashboards are great, no doubt about it. They're great to give you a high-level overview of what your business was happening yesterday, as an example. So in this case, this is a daily dashboard where you're seeing your data and what's happening in your sales daily. This is a daily sales dashboard for wine. So you can see how my sales is happening every day. So what does this dashboard tell me when you take a look at this? Looks like I'm selling more red wine than I'm selling champagne. As an example, take a look bottom left corner. It looks like my corporate sales seems to be my most profitable sales channel right now. And looking at this bottom chart here, it shows like my gross margin is high for a few select high selling items. So that's good to know and fantastic to get this information. However, what this dashboard is not telling me is that, are there any combination of those filter values that you see on the left-hand side, country, product category, and channel, that I should be paying attention to? Are there any product category that are underperforming compared to their current average and so on, right? So it's kind of hard to find the detail in your data when you take a look at the dashboard like this one. So as Mike was saying, let's see a few areas how we can enrich those BI dashboard to detect anomalies and to see what we should be paying attention to. So the first example that I have for that is that daily sales metric that we have. So for this particular, what you're looking at right now is a chart, is a metric insights chart made out of data extracted from the Qlik Sense platform. On the left-hand side, you're noticing, it's a pretty typical time series chart. You've seen those. We're looking at about 4 weeks worth of data right now. And you can imagine that when we're loading data from Qlik Sense, we're getting the dates and the current values of those sales. What Metric Insight does when we're ingesting data is we're actually profiling the data. And profiling the data allows us to draw the moving average, as we see here through this chart, that would create the standard deviation. And therefore, Metric Insight can easily flag items that are outside of the standard deviation of this moving average as being statistically anomalous. So the system does that automatically. In this case here, I believe I have 9 months worth of data, so you can see where the platform depicted those statistical anomalies through the platform. And this is done across all the different dimensional values that you have. You can imagine that the length of your moving average and the size of their standard deviation can be adjusted for each of your KPIs that we're profiling in the platform. In addition to that, it's possible to create any sets of alerting rules on the platform as well, such as if I want to go ahead here and create rules, to create an alert, we have several different options here. Most BI tools have threshold-based, alerting that is not used a lot. And typically, if I'm above or below a value that has been set, let me know about that. When you start to have the highly dimensionalized data and you have multiple different filters and thresholds to maintain, we found out that people over time are not maintaining these thresholds across multiple different point of views, and they become kind of moot. So people are not using those types of alerting scenarios too often. However, we found out that it's much more interesting if you want to compare your data points against averages or prior value, where you may be able to compare your Mondays to Mondays, Saturdays to Saturdays, January to January, and so on. You can even look at them by volatility level band, where if a data point falls between 1 to 2 standard deviation, let me know about it. But if it falls between 2 to 3 standard deviation, let me and my manager know about it, and so on. Can compare those to target and even combine multiple of these alerting scenarios into one that gives you some very highly sophisticated alerting scenarios that you can do. So taking a look at an alerting rule here, just to give one quick example, I'll select averages or prior value. And when you want to create an alert with a platform, you can make an alert. In this case, I want to be alerted if my data points are falling about 10% above or below the averages of all days of the week for the past month. And I'd like this to be notified every time those anomalies are happening. And once I made that selection criteria, how do I want to receive this information? We have several different options. Should users want to receive an alert immediately, you can receive it via email, SMS, phone alert tray, and even collaboration platforms such as Microsoft Teams and Slack. It's all possible to receive the information this way. And you want to receive it every time the condition is met, or the first time it is. In our case, we'll do it every time the condition is met. And once you've done that, we even have the ability to simulate this alert criteria here to see how often it would happen. So in the past 30 days, again, this particular criteria here tells me that we would have triggered 52 times an alert over the past 30 days. That might be too much. So I can just change this alerting criteria, simulate something different, and see if I increase this from 10 to 20%. Now I would receive 14 alerts on 30 days based on 8 different countries. So that seems to be reasonable. If I want to see where my alerts would have been generated for Canada, I can select that, see where those alerts would have come up, and now you see it here. So that sounds like the selection criteria is looking good for me here. So then let's take a look at the alert content. Here is where you see where your alert would look like should you receive it via email. So you can imagine that you can customize all the text that you'll receive in an email, phone, and so on. So all your text can be customized. And here on the right-hand side, you even have an example of what the email alert would look like. So knowing, in my case, I know that the data that I extracted came from QlikSense. What I'm interested in doing is actually alerting my users when the data points falls outside of the 20% above or below of the averages. But I would like to add as a payload, I would actually like to receive my sales analysis. I'd like to see my QlikSense dashboard to be embedded in the email alert when I receive it. So it's quite simple to literally attach the alert that we created with this dashboard.
And what's important there is that that's an image of the slice of data that generated that alert in the first place. So it's an accurate snapshot. We take an image of the dashboard for the time that the alert was generated, for the slice of data that the alert was generated. So it's not just a thumbnail, it's giving me an accurate picture of it.
Very good point. And once we'd selected that, then after that, you can attach this alert to a workflow as well. So in our case here, I have created an operation workflow. In a nutshell here, what does that mean? It means that you can set an alert that you assign an individual to this alert, and you can even create an escalation path. So should a user not respond to an alert into X amount of time, his manager can receive an alert and so on, right? So we have the way to enable the complete workflow through all this. So that's how you go ahead and create your alerting scenarios, your alerting criteria, and once you have it, then you've already created that, and that's the alert for a particular metric. Now, so that's one scenario. The second thing that we'll talk about, getting away from the alerts, is talking about what Mike talked about before, creating an exception report, right? So an exception report is done this way. In our current example, we have the daily sales QlikSense dashboard that we had, and what we did here is on each and every day we took a snapshot of the data that we had into this QlikSense dashboard. The snapshot is then being rendered inside of Metric Insights, and what we're looking at right now is the data sets of all the data that we have on this particular snapshot. The thing that I'm interested in doing right now is to create an exception view where I'm interested in finding out if there's any combination, took a look at my filters that I had in my QlikSense dashboard. Are there any combination of my country, channel, and product category where my costs are actually greater than my sales for a large quantity of items that I'm selling? So how do I go about resolving a question like that? We call exception report. So in my case here, I'm interested again in selecting country, channels, and product category. And for my KPIs here, I'd like to have the sum of my total sales amount. I would like to have my sum of my total unit counts and also have the sum of my my cost. So I can compare my cost to my sales. So selecting my items like this, applying my changes, and now what you're seeing on the screen is those fields again of that where this combination happens. We're down from 2,000 rows of data now to 96. But what I'm interested in too is I would like to find out where the sum of my cost is greater than the sum of my sales. Does that ever happen? So you can create some rules in your data like this, where you say my total sum of my total cost would be greater than the sum of my total sales amount by a value or by any amount and so on. So in this case, I'll select any amount. Let's see if I have anything like this that happened. So there we go. So now in this case, we're down to about 30 rows of data. So then we'll focus our attention to areas where we actually sold a lot of units. So what I'd like to do here is just to do the sum of my total unit count to be greater than 1,000. Now, applying this, I am down now to about 11 exceptions here where this particular anomalies happen. So once you have the data that you have there, what I'd like to do is actually save this as my view. I'll call this my exception view. And I'll make this public so my so people on my team has the way to see it and work with this data. So when I save my view, I can then go ahead and build a report directly off of the data that I have here. So going ahead to build this report, now we are into a report editor, you know, for this particular data that we had, those 11 rows. You can imagine that our reporting functions, we have a lot of webinars on this. You know, all the formatting capabilities and so on is working well into this platform. So I don't want to go there this morning. But what I'd like to do is kind of finalize this particular report and attach this report to actually the QlikSense dashboard that I had before, to see that, so sales analysis for QlikSense, sales analysis, there we go. And once I have this dashboard, what I want to do is I want to map the columns of my report to the filters that I had in QlikSense. And this is exactly what I'm doing here. So I match my country, I match my channel, and I will also match my product category to the filters I had in my QlikSense dashboard. And now if I go ahead and apply this, what you'll end up seeing is you'll see this particular report now, everything is underlinked with the QlikSense dashboard displayed right down below. So if I save and view this particular report now, you'll see this report in conjunction of the exceptions that we have generated. And it was quite simple, as you can see here, to create this exception report, going to my data sets and creating those rules was quite simple. So now let's take a look at the full picture. We started with the QlikSense dashboard with a big generic overview. We created an exception report going from 2,000 rows of data all the way down to 11 rows of data where this particular exception is happening, or my sum of my cost is greater than the sum of my sales. And not only this, we're showing you the dashboard below in context of this particular exceptions. So if you want to see what happened in Germany, website visit, one accessory, simply selecting this link in the dashboard, in the report up there, will show the dashboard in context. So that's one example of an exception report. So far we've seen the metric, and now we've seen this exception report. The other report that I'd like to do is to create a change report as well. So again, now I'm back to my data set. And what I have the same views that I had before. Again, we have several different instances of the data. And because we have several iterative instances of the data, I'd like to compare one to the other. So first thing I'd like to do is compare my two instances of data. And I'm mainly interested in what changed from yesterday to today. And as a matter of fact, the question that I will be asking here is that, is there any areas where the total sum of my sales today is more than 50% down compared to what it was yesterday? So how do we go ahead answering that question? First, we know that we're tracking in changes between two instances. We're going to do this across my country, channel, and product category. And what I'd like to do here is select the sum of my sales again. And in this case, we talked about percentages, right? And I'm interested in finding out only the items that are down more than 50% compared to yesterday. So what I'd like to do here is I'll apply my changes, and I want to create a derived field that allows me to create the percent changes. if I could spell, that would help. Okay, and the display mask here, the percentages. So now we have the mean to use the different fields that you have within this, within our UI, to be able to take a look at your sales here. So in my case, I like to do my prior sum of sales compared to my current sum of my sales, and created a calculated item that that would give me obviously the answer to that. So now adding this field, I can apply the changes, and now you can see that my percentage changes are being shown here. And as a result of that, the last thing that I would like to do is to get all my rules to where my percentage changes are greater than, you know, my current sum of my sales greater than the previous sum of my sales by X amount. So in this case here, I will select my percentage changes is greater than a value. So in this case, I will take 50%. And applying those changes here, give me my values where I'm down to 6 rows of data where this particular exception happens. And as a matter of fact, current sum of my sales and yesterday's sum of my sales was more than 50% greater than this. The resulting of this, again, I can go ahead and save this view and create a report. The result of this will be a report similar to the one we looked at before, where now we have our different snapshots of our data. We see our 6 exceptions where this has happened. And again, we're showing you the QlikSense dashboard in context to where this particular anomaly has happened. So, so that's it for those enrichment part, Mike.
Yeah, so again, summary, taking what is fairly data-rich dashboards, lots of filters, lots of metrics, and doing some enrichment against that to help users figure out, what the subset is that they should go and focus on, which combinations of things are important today. So everything together in one place, uncover exceptions, excuse me. The third piece is then, okay, let's push out that information to users. Let's not rely on them to come and look at it in the portal every day. And we're going to look at a number of examples of that, the concept of being able to curate that information onto a single page, what we call portal pages, the ability to email that out or alert users to it, mobile access to that information, and then finally we integrate, and Louis mentioned this a couple of times, with different collaboration tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams, where if there's conversations going on those platforms, we can push data into those platforms to add to the conversation.
Very well, thank you, Mike. And to take a look at these now, I like to go back to the home page and actually start with the first one that Mike mentioned, the portal pages. So here in this example, again, what we looked at before was the catalog view when you see all the tabs. We also have the mean to create some highly curated experience for users, where users have the ability to have multiple KPIs, reports, and tabs into one single view. So in this particular example here, taking a look at our KPIs that I care about on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, you can see how they're evolving. In addition to that, you see a few exceptions reports here. I can take a look at my top performing product by channels. Everything is live via this dashboard page, so it's easy to see the different reports that you have. The exception report we just created together, here's an example of that here. And as I'm scrolling down, you even see your sales analysis dashboard, into this single location. So again, portal pages, the ability to put highly curated experience that are permission-based, where users will obviously have access to their own data and their own information that they can see. So that is one example of many that we have. The other thing that Mike talked about is the ability to distribute information via email. And now I'm switching tab, and focus your attention on the middle of the screen here. And this is an example of a digest email that is sent to your business users on a daily basis. Could have been whatever frequency you decide to send them to, or users decide to receive those to. And in this case here, you receive your top movers KPI, the summary of all the different KPIs you're currently following. And as I'm scrolling down, you'll see a few exception reports, again, that we had as part of this, this conversation we had today. Even embedding your QlikSense dashboard, we have a Power BI dashboard. And all of this can be packaged up into a PowerPoint. So the beauty for business users is to receive an email like this one that comes from multiple different data sources. In this example, this email comes comes out from 8 different data sources, but it's all packaged in one single email. It's interactive, so you'll notice if I click on this particular dashboard, that would bring me back to the live dashboard inside of Metric Insight or directly in Qlik Sense, and so on for the same thing for the reports and the KPIs that you're seeing here. So that's the second way that we have to receive the information. So the portal pages, receiving information via email. And as we talked about email, since we talked about it before, I wanted to show you, we looked at the digest email right now. Earlier, I talked about an alert. So here's an example of what an alert email would look like. Receiving this information here based on the threshold that was set, and the payload of this was, again, was this dashboard where users can click on that and go back to the application. But more importantly, it's showing you a dashboard that is in context where this alert was found. And the last point that I have here is, an example of an exception report. We created this exception report before, where my sales are down more than 50% compared to the previous day. And then when we're sending those, we're even sending the dashboard in context of what you're seeing here. So again, multiple different delivery mechanisms as it relates to email. For alerts as well, we can receive alerts we have an alerting inbox. So in this example before, this alerting inbox that we had, if my users are, I'm being assigned a particular alert and I want to see what's going on. This particular alert here has been assigned to me. I can go ahead and assign it to someone else on my team. I can change the status of this particular alert that was generated and even increase the priority and so on, put comments in this. And when I save that, what ends up happening is Anna would then receive inside of her inbox the alert that is there on top of the screen to let her know that she has to go ahead and work on that. So that is kind of the third way that we can receive information. The fourth way that we can receive information is to go through the mobile application. So here we bring in a simulation of the mobile application running directly off of my phone. So in this example here, take a look at the favorite folders that we were into before. Again, you see all the different KPIs and the different dashboard that you have access to. It's quite easy to consume this information. If I want to know more about any particular dashboard or any particular KPI, it's quite simple to select it and to go ahead and select this particular dashboard to be able to see it. And not only when you see those dashboards like this, you have the content. You can see the different collaboration feature. In this case, we have an expert analysis of this dashboard, but collaboration feature and so on available here. So that's how you can peruse to your data. You can even take a look at the different types of alerts that has been generated on the system here. So we have the alert that has been generated. Sorry, I closed the phone by mistake. My bad. So we have the different types of alerts. And you can finally, that's what the middle piece there. And the last piece of this is you can also go ahead and change different types of ways that you're looking at your data. So if I click on you can change, we're looking at the executive brief right now, but you can have a much more detailed view of your KPIs that you have access to and so on. So again, we have the app that works both on the iOS and the Android platform. Moving along here, the last piece of the application that Mike was talking about was collaboration tools. So with collaboration tool, what's kind of nice is the idea to
zoom in a bit on that, Louis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there we go. Make it a little bit bigger. So in this case, those collaboration tool, we talked that, the bigger one right now, there's Microsoft Teams, there's also Slack that are big out there. So for us, we can have a conversation between those collaboration tools and Metric Insights platform. So in this case here, if I want to type anything against my, if I want to have a chat, let's say with my particular bot here, and I'm interested to see, hey, what's happening, Canada sales analysis. And when I type this particular questions like this, what ends up happening is the system goes, against Metric Insight and say, oh, here's a dashboard that you were looking for, so you're talking to this, to the app, it returns the dashboard. If I like what I'm seeing when having the conversation with Metric Insight, I can go ahead and share it with my team. In this case here, I'd like to share it with my sales team. And within my sales team, they have this channel, so I want to share it with that particular channel. And what ends up happening is, obviously, as you can imagine, now going back to my team here in my general channel, I see the same QlikSense dashboard. It's live and active. So now if I want to go back and go go back to the dashboard, I can have access to it directly. And that works the same way for those exception reports, metrics, and dashboards that we talked about.
So what's happening there is we're actually running some natural language processing against any terms that are being typed into the tool. We're understanding, is there any content that exists that appears to be related to the phrase that was entered, and then we suggest that back up. In this case, Louis, found a piece of content that was an exact match. If he, had searched for a broader term, it would have potentially brought back a list of different things from the portal that he could then peruse through and choose ones that were relevant. So that's our overview this morning. So again, we went through the 3 areas of organization, enrichment, distribution. Again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to take all that content that's being produced in your organization and your BI tools today, and make it more meaningful and useful and actionable for end users, so that they're, again, focused on what's important each day. So there's a couple of questions that have come in, so let's get to those. So Louis, a question about security and permissions in general and how that works. Can you touch on that a bit?
Absolutely. So we work with enterprise security. So we support LDAP, Advanced Directory, for all the users and users group that you have, and we connect with your corporate security through through single sign-on and so on. So it's very easy to organize the application so it works within your enterprise ecosystem. Once you're within Metric Insights, the content that you'll have access to, the categories that you'll have access to, and the content that you'll be able to see will be filtered down for what each and every users have access to see, leveraging enterprise security you already have.
So question on deployment, is this a cloud solution?
Yeah, so we have 2 deployment options. We can distribute both in the cloud and on-premise. So we support both implementation in the cloud. We work with both Microsoft and Amazon Cloud, and on-premise obviously can sit within your own firewall as well.
And then a question about the different types of data sources that you connect to. Can you talk more about the data sources? Maybe show actually our data source list.
Yes, that's a good idea. Absolutely. So data sources that we are working with, taking a look at our admin piece here, we connect to, we have over 45 different connectors within the application. And so we can connect to any databases via JDBC driver. And we have all the different connectors that we have access to. So you talk about business intelligence, application data in the cloud, big data, and so on. Multiple different point of view and connection points here. Happy to discuss further.
So they tend to fall into 2 categories, as Louis said, where we're connecting via APIs to tools like QlikSense, or you can upload any JDBC driver. So we're connecting to the raw data.
Absolutely.
So we are over our half hour. Once again, we've been recording this, so we'll post this on our blog, but we'll also send out an email to registrants with that link over the next couple of days. If there are further questions, Louis had popped up our contact details, but info@metricinsights.com, or you can get Louis or myself directly at Mike or Louis at metricinsights.com. We'll be happy to get those answered. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike.